Yeah, so my name's Tate Russell. I'm with Charleville Brewing Company, and this is Kevin Cline. He's our head brewer. For those of you who don't know, we are located down in St. Genevieve, Missouri. It's about an hour, 15, hour and a half, depending on what part of town you're coming from. We started out as a winery about 13 years ago, opened our tasting room, and quickly started brewing beer. So we've been brewing for about 13 years now. Essentially started out home brewing, doing about 10-gallon batches at a time just to get through the weekends, and then slowly started ramping up. We bought a 1-barrel system, graduated to a 7-barrel system, which we brewed on for 8 years, and then about a year ago, right now, we finished the construction on our expansion that Chad was mentioning with a 30-barrel brew house. So it's really cool to finally keep up with production and distributor orders. The 30-barrel is a lot more of a brew house than we actually need at the moment, but we didn't want to have to go down the road and take out equipment and add more equipment to it. So, but it's nice to have the 30-barrel brew house and the 7-barrel brew house operational. It allows us to work on draft releases for ourselves and do new things that we didn't have the time to do before. It also allows us to work with some other breweries that need some brewing capabilities like Heavy Riff, and we've also been working on the first few batches of beer with Earthbound while they get their expansion up and running as well. So pretty cool to have that opportunity to work on both size brew houses. So for, like Chad said, we've had you guys down for our, the field trip a couple times over the past 6 years. I think this is our 4th beer school that we've done in 6 years. So it's kind of fun to get up and every other year come up and kind of talk about things and how things are developing. So that was the big thing is the expansion. It's not quite complete, but we're operational. We've got like an event space that we're trying to put together as well, but it's not quite finished yet. We got operational, and we just kind of stopped everything else and just started making beer. So, but yeah, if you guys haven't been down, we encourage you to come down. We've got the best of both worlds with wine and beer. It's an easy day trip if you want to do it that way, and there's plenty of B&Bs in the area, so you can make a whole weekend of it. Aside from us, there's about 9 other wineries in the area, along with Crown Valley Brewing. So it's a nice weekend trip. So yeah, I encourage you to come down. So we got some fun stuff tonight. We're going to sample 2 of our year-round beers, which they're starting to pass out to you guys tonight, and then 3 other beers on tap. One is one of our big limited releases, and then 2 of the collaborations. So I'm really happy to have some unique stuff for you guys to try. So a little background on myself. I got into brewing, essentially home brewing, although I wasn't a super avid home brewer. I just like to do it from time to time. But once this tasting room opened up and the idea kind of got planted in my head, our former brewmaster, Tony, recommended the American Brewers Guild. So I went to the American Brewers Guild and got my brewing certificate, started interning at Schlafly, was able to brew out at Augusta for about just under 2 years, and also was able to help open up Square One in Lafayette Square. Then I got out of the industry for about a year, and then when they bought the 7-barrel brew house, they called me up and said, "Do you want to help Tony brew, and do you want to do some sales?" So I said, "Sure, let's give it a go." And that's been about 9 years ago. So that's a little bit of my background. I'd like to pass you over to Kevin so he can introduce himself and kind of fill you guys on his background.
Hello, I'm Kevin, and I'm kind of terrible at public speaking, so, just give me a break here. So the beer that they're passing out right now, Halfwit, was actually the first craft beer that I had. I kind of snuck it out of my parents' fridge when I was about 17, and that kind of started a downward spiral into my college years. I was in Columbia, and of course the ITAP opened up while I was there, and that just kind of furthered it. After I finished school at Mizzou, I had what I call my quarter-life crisis and ran away to New Zealand. And that's actually where I picked up brewing. I brewed there for about a year and a half before coming back to St. Genevieve, and started brewing for Charleville in April of 2015. So I've been there for about a year, and it was right when you guys were opening up the 30 brew house. So Yeah, that's more or less me. That's me in a nutshell.
So I guess, are we ready on the first beer? Not quite. Okay. We like to keep it kind of open when we do these things. So if you guys have questions throughout feel free, because we kind of prefer just kind of having a conversation.
In my first apartment in Colombia is when I started home brewing. But professionally, yes, in New Zealand. There's different laws and regulations that are in place. One of them being that alcohol is taxed by percentage. So there are a lot of lower ABV beers. Kind of where I feel most comfortable brewing nowadays is the lower end of the ABV range. But when I came back over to the United States, it was really cool to be able to just go wild on whatever I want. Are they passing out? So yeah, there's a lot of differences, mainly with laws.
And the seasons are different, so, you know. So, well, you skipped winter or you skipped summer. Which was it? You skipped winter for like almost 2 years?
I hadn't had a winter in 2 years.
Yeah, so when he left, then it was like, spring, then he was down there the whole time, and then by the time he came back, so, yeah. So he didn't even get a lot of snow this year, so, But, all right, cool, guys. Well, it looks like we have the first beer in hand, so we'll introduce this. I guess I'll give the background on Halfwit. This is the first, like one of the first 2 beers that we ever brewed as a brewery, along with Tornado Alley, our amber ale, which we're not sampling tonight. But so it's one of our flagships. At the time when we started brewing, the 2 styles that were in the market the most popular were Fat Tire and Blue Moon, as far as craft beers go. So when we started brewing, we thought we may as well make some beers that are kind of in those lines, because that's what people were enjoying. So Halfwit is essentially a hybrid of the Belgian wit and American wheat styles. We use the orange and coriander that is typically found in Belgian wits, but we use an American ale strain. So it doesn't have the big kind of esters that you might find in a wit, but rather drinkable. 4.5%. Let's see, percentage-wise on the grain. Do you want to throw that out to them?
As far as base malt goes, we go 50% wheat, 50% two-row, and then there's a small, rolled oats, flaked oats addition. And the yeast strain specifically is 1010 right now. Is this the one that we packaged yesterday?
Yeah, we just bottled it yesterday.
So there you go, as fresh as can be.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. We've been going back and forth over the years with altering kind of ingredients, and we don't usually like to make dramatic changes when we make a change to a beer, but we've decided we're going to shift the yeast strain from the American 1010 wheat yeast back to an American ale yeast SO5, which is what we use for most of our other beers. Mainly because the 1010 yeast lends itself to some issues in the brewing production, and it's harder for us to actually grow it up. So since we actively use the ale yeast more regularly, we're going to switch to that. We don't think it's going to really alter the flavor too much, because most of what you're getting out of here is the citrus profile that you get. And when we first started brewing it, we used the ale yeast, and it really didn't change a whole lot. The one benefit of the 1010 is it's supposed to hold the yeast in suspension and keep it kind of hazy and cloudy. So we'll lose a little bit of that with the other ale yeast that we're switching to. But like I said, for consistency and quality of the beer going out for us, it'll provide a few less headaches for us. So, but typically this has been our number 1 seller throughout the years, up until about 2 years ago when it was surpassed by Hoptamistic, our IPA, which was really kind of interesting to watch how the market had changed, because it was always an introductory beer. It was always well, I don't really like craft beer, but if I had something to drink, this would be kind of what I would drink, or, I like Blue Moon, so what do you have that's like that? And so that's kind of where this one came about. So it's still one of our main sellers, but it's interesting to see the market change since we started brewing to lend itself towards other styles. And I think part of it is just people are becoming more versed in other styles, and so they're branching out. And so maybe when they started drinking wheats, maybe they started trying other things that kind of suited their taste buds a little bit, and have started to break away. So that's the half-wit, really. Abby, yes. Well, typically we puree them whole, but once again, that's another change. We're going to switch to the dried orange peels, just for, once again, consistency. So the oranges we found were different throughout the year, and we felt that they changed kind of the flavor profile. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah. He said sugar level, so. But yeah, typically that and the coriander ground up and put in as well. So, yeah, sorry, was there another question? No?
I'm curious if there's anybody in the room that doesn't like Belgian wits but really likes this. If there's anybody at all that doesn't typically drink a Belgian style wit but really, really likes this? Nobody? Surprised. I thought there might be at least one.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a show of hands earlier of those of you who've never had any of our beers before. Can I see that again? I'm just kind of curious. Okay, cool. Well, it's always nice to introduce new people to our beers, so that's great.
Yep. What about this beer? How many people have had this beer before tonight? Okay, so almost everybody that's had the Charleville beer has had this before.
Okay. Yeah, and I would hope that'd be the case. Yeah. 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 Cool. Well, that's half-wit. So we're going to move on. I mean,
Just really briefly talk about like triple wit, for instance.
oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in a similar, it's really not similar category at all, but we also do another beer, which typically comes out this time of year, is triple wit, which is kind of our hybrid of the Belgian wit and the Belgian triple. So, and the similarities to half-wit is that we use the oats, the two-row, and the wheat, and the coriander, and the orange. Excuse me. The difference there is instead of the American ale yeast, we use the Belgian triple yeast, and the gravity goes up quite dramatically from this being a 4.5% beer to triple wit's 9%. And so the flavor profile is quite dramatically different, although there are some similarities with just the ingredient flavor, but with that yeast, just brings out a lot of really cool, like banana, clove, bubblegum, kind of cotton candy kind of notes to it. And it can stand up a little bit longer to a little bit of age. I think up to a year at 9%, it usually holds up pretty nicely. And the change this year, though, is we kind of got jammed up with how many beers and seasonals we're bringing out from the beginning of the year to kind of the beginning of the summer. And so I decided to spread it out a little bit. So we're gonna bring that out in the fall this year. Unfortunately, the only main difference on that is we used to like to use the Clementine oranges because they are out right around this time. So we're going to miss that window, so we'll have to shift to a different variety. But, with switching back to kind of the dried orange peels, I think we might be able to do something fun, like throw in some tangerine peels or something, just to kind of make it a little bit different. So, but yeah, you can look forward to that one coming out early fall. So.
I kind of wanted to mention that just because, kind of, to go back to my question, you guys do like, wit styles and maybe the traditional wit styles, but you're not a huge fan of the half wit. When you see the triple wit come out, you should try it because it's a lot different. It's not going to be just the same beer of a higher alcohol. It's completely different. So, if you like triple, you should taste it.
Yeah. On the half wit, 12 right now. Every now and then it'll kind of fluctuate, but usually between 11 and 13, depending on the alpha acid of the hops that we get in. Centennial kind of is the hop that's used, and it fluctuates. I've seen it hit 8.3. It's been as low as 7.5. So. Not the IBUs exactly, but it might come off as more. What was it? I The orange peel wouldn't affect the IBU directly, but it might come off as more bitter. Yes.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, just more of the perception. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so this next beer, I imagine everybody has it. This is the collaborate. I haven't tasted it yet. I'm going off color here. This is our collaboration with the OG girls. This is a porter. Do you want to come up, or you just want to sit there?
Come on, Abby.
You can stare as I butcher all this. That's fine. Did you do this beer?
Yes, I did Britney Spears, unlike you guys. So, yeah, give both these guys crap tonight when you say bye, because they wouldn't wear the Britney Spears thing, and I definitely did. So, Kevin will give you all the stats on this beer. I'll just briefly talk about what I did on this end. So, the OG, we do a lot of stuff, but we're a women's beer club here in St. Louis. One thing we do is homebrewing and homebrewing education, specifically for women. We involve the guys all the time as well, but my club is geared towards women. So we designed this beer with Charleville in mind. I've been good friends with the Charleville guys for a long time, and was really hoping to reach out to them and brew a beer with them on some sort of collaboration. So my vice president and I got together and decided on a porter. These guys do like one of the best porters in town for sure, but it's not like a standard porter. It's a huge ass boozy beer, which is outstanding if you haven't had it. Anyway, so we wanted to do a porter. It's one of our favorite styles. It's really, a lot of people really like porters. They're chocolatey, they're easy. We added a bunch of oats to make it like a really pretty silky feel to it. We just wanted the mouthfeel to be a little more interesting. So yeah, I reached out to Tate and the whole Charleville crew. They so kindly hosted like 15 girls at the brewery. I know we, on a Sunday, yep, both of these guys came out on a Sunday, so I owe them like 8 beers each. Kevin was totally like eyes glazed over seeing all these girls like, we're here. And it was awesome. So it was 15 women in his face all day long, and we all drank a ton, and it was a blast. And that's really all I have to say about that. We'll hopefully do it again, and I just won't tell them before we come this time. So. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. What's it called?
Down with OGP. What? The beer is called Down with OGP. So it was like, a triple play there. We got the OG, we got the song, and we got the oatmeal porter. So yeah, that was their call, not mine. So.
But we came up with it at the brewery.
That's right. Yeah.
So being a collaboration, this is kind of one of the beers that I don't have memorized, one of the recipes that I'm not 100% familiar with. It was kind of like a one-off deal. So I actually, before I left the brewery today, printed off all the recipe specifics. So if anybody has super specific questions about this beer, I am prepared for it. One of the highlights of this recipe, I think, was the whole flaked barley thing, because we don't ever use flaked barley. We use flaked oats plenty, but flaked barley was one of the ingredients that I hadn't encountered before this, and I was really excited to work with. Anything?
No, well, I think what was fun about this is, the whole idea of this was the girls had the recipe that they wanted to do, and our job was to scale it up and try and be as true to the recipe as we could. We scaled it, all the malt is to the percentage that they had done on their original recipe. The only variation, we had one hop that we couldn't access at the time. And so we had to make a substitution, but for the most part, everything's to the T where they were wanting it to be. So pretty happy with the way it turned out. Would love to do it again, because I think all the events we've done have been well attended, and the reviews and feedback on the beer has been really positive. So really happy with that. It was just, yeah. So we're at, what were we at? I totally don't even remember, like 6%, I think.
I don't remember the final graph, but I think it's around 6.2%.
Yeah, about between 6 and 6.5%. And
I use
where's it? The
I don't know.
oh, 32, or just under 33. That's the anticipated. Yeah. So we'll just call it that. Yeah. So you're trying to get me to get questions so you can answer them. I see how it is. You just want swag. Yeah. Yes, we did, and they were doing yoga in the brewery. So yeah. Yes, sir.
It's really hanging on the side of glass. It's great. Is that the oats?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a little bit of that. It's a nice, clean glassware, which is a good thing. But yeah, good head retention's always a plus. I think getting the not too high on the flaked oats, but bringing in some of the flaked barley, I think it assisted with that. Yep. Yeah, it's super drinkable. It's really nice. Oh, that's right. That's another thing. One of the things we don't typically use a lot of export grains, especially for base malts, but the base of this was Maris Otter, which was really nice. We've only really played with that a couple times, so it provides a really nice base for the beer.
The only other time we've done it that I can remember was when we did the collaboration with Second Shift for the Session IPA.
Right.
And that's really the only other time we've used Maris Otter as a base malt that I can since April of 2015.
Yeah. I enjoy it. It's a really nice base malt.
Any other questions before we? 5 barrels, and going through the day. Do you remember the day of when we were trying to do the volume calculations? We have a 7-barrel brewing system. So we decided beforehand to do 5 barrels, judging on the amount of flaked oats and flaked barley, and the chocolate black patent are both very friable malts. So when you mill them, they break down into a nice powder, and the rolled oats tend to get kind of gummy. So looking at this grain bill, it would have been a very complex lauter to do a full 7-barrel batch of, and because of that, we scaled it down to 5. But we lost all the volume calculations for the kettle and didn't know exactly what the height was on, like within the kettle, where that 5-barrel mark was. So it took like an extra hour to figure everything out.
It's still drinkable, so that's right.
I was distracted all day.
Okay. Any other questions about the porter before we? No?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to just ramp it up really quite dramatically here. So the next beer that we thanks. Next beer we have here is the box of chocolate. So this is kind of our most popular limited release that we bring out at the beginning of the year every year. So basically what we did is we took the Belgian quad style, totally kind of rearranged the grain bill and threw a whole bunch of chocolate malt into it. And that was the idea, was just have this kind of chocolate quad. And the original recipe was put up that way. When we tried to go and have it submitted to the TTB for approval, because we said chocolate in the name of the beer, they required us to actually put some form of chocolate into the beer. So originally it was just the chocolate malt, the way we put the beer together, and that's how we liked it. So what we did is we did some research and we found some companies, I think out in California, that make some really nice natural extracts. And so we found chocolate extract that we use in pretty minor amounts in the beer, and it's just to finish it, just to say we have to put it in there, and it really just provides a little aroma. So the bulk of this beer is what you're getting is basically from the grain bill, which if you I wish we could put it out there without that in there, but it is what it is. But so this is the base is a Belgian quad. It's 10.5%, so it's a big sipper. And this year was the first year that we actually released it in 12-ounce six-packs. It used to be in 22-ounce bombers, so it's nice to get it out in a different format, and it's been received really, really nicely. But yeah, by far probably our most popular seasonal that we bring out. I gotta say, a lot of people want to age this beer. It will hold up for the most part, but I really don't recommend it because the chocolate flavors tend to drop out over time. So although it'll still drink well, it won't have that big, vibrant kind of, dark chocolate like punch that you get right when it's fresh. So you can do what you want, but we prefer it to be consumed fresh. So, yes, sir. Well,
The last week of November.
That's what I was going to say.
We only brew this once a year. We kind of do everything all in one go. And actually, that week was the biggest brew week, I think, in company history. We brewed, I think it was 120 barrels in a week. And, close to 90 of that was box of chocolate. So, yeah, it's only brewed during that 1 week. And once we're done with it, it sits in fermenters until we're able to package it and have it ready by Valentine's Day, I think it was.
Yeah, we typically bring it out kind of at the end of end of January. So yeah, it hangs out in the fermenters for almost like a lager, close to 8 weeks before we release it, because it's a big beer. The yeast has to have that time to do its thing. On top of that, this particular yeast that we use has a hard time dropping out of suspension, and so it takes a while for it to drop out. So you can get, obviously it's not a clear beer because it's dark, but you don't want all that yeast in there either. So it just takes a while to settle out. That's just the nature of the yeast. And every batch we do, we pitch a fresh yeast a fresh pitch of this yeast into, because it's not the best yeast to harvest. It doesn't flocculate very well. So yeah.
No, there is no lactose added to this beer. That was your question?
I think it was an extension of this beer, a modification of this beer that you did that was a German chocolate.
That's a different beer altogether. We take a base, base stout, like our coffee stout base or an oatmeal stout base, and we use some coconut and vanilla with that, and we make a German chocolate cake stout.
Yeah, I had that at the beer dinner.
Yeah, we only do that once a year. It's kind of for my dad's birthday. So, but yeah, no. Most of it's like the yeast flavors that you're getting out of this. Sorry, I was a theater major, so I'm used to talking without microphones. But so no lactose in this, but there's a lot of residual sweetness because it's such a big beer. So the sweetness of that with a lot of the other flavors, I could see how it can perceive that kind of creamy. Yeah. So, we're at that time already. Almost. On box of chocolate, it's 17. Yeah. Yes, sir. Right, this was all 12 ounce this year. And we're getting ready we brewed a separate 6-barrel batch recently that we're getting ready to fill 3 bourbon barrels that will be available at the wine and cheese place. Every year we do a barrel-aged version of this, so, but we can't release them at the same time, so, yeah. Yes? Yeah, for the most part, you can get it at the brewery or wine and cheese place, and the reason is because Paul Hayden at the wine and cheese provides the barrels for us for free, and so in return, we package it and return it back to him for sale, and it's a nice relationship for us because bourbon barrels are expensive, And honestly, he has such a good fan base and following. He can sell the entire allotment in less than 24 hours. So, yeah, most people haven't. And we used to do it in 750s, but this year it'll be in 12-ounce singles. Yep. Actually, while we're talking about that, we're going to be hopefully releasing 7 barrel-aged beers throughout the year. Barrel-aged box of chocolate is one at the Wine and Cheese. We'll also do a barrel-aged barley wine that will also be at the Wine and Cheese place. And then we have 5 kind of barrel-aged, somewhat sours or tarts, I should say, that we'll be releasing. So we've got the Amelie, which is a wit beer aged in white wine barrels. We have the Flanders Red, which is second-use barrels, Flanders aged with cherries for about 2 years. We'll also be releasing the Kickin' the Cranberries, which is the wit beer aged in white wine barrels with cranberries. And then the Sailing Creek, which is our creek. We haven't released that in quite a few years. It's aged with cherries as well. And then we also have a new one that we're working on, which is called the Last Mango in Paris. And that is a French Saison aged with mangoes in wine barrels. So those are all coming out this year, and we've been working on those for quite a while, so looking forward to it. Okay, so moving on, if there are no more questions about Box of Chocolate, we have Hoptamistic.
So this is our IPA. It's one of the recipes that I've just got memorized. I know exactly what to do when brew day goes around. It feels really natural when I'm brewing it. There's no complications. This one I've got figured out. Like, it's pushing it right on through. All of the bittering hops at this point are Columbus, and that's the only hop that we use for bittering. And then switching over for flavor and aroma, kind of the final kettle additions, and then the dry hopping and various other hopping techniques. That's all Mosaic. That has been that way since the beginning of 2015. So every year you have to roll over your hop contract. You have to contract your allotted harvest from the hop growers. And that kind of extends 3 years from, present day. Our hop contract coming up, we kind of dropped off a little bit of the Columbus, and we're moving now to Bravo. And Bravo will become the sole bittering hop for Hoptamistic, followed up with Mosaic, as we still have a lot of that on contract. We can still use Mosaic for all the aroma and flavor. So if you smell it, you get a lot of pineapple off of it. It's yeah, I really like the aroma of this one.
Yeah, this has been, once again, like one of our flagships. It was the third of the 3 beers that we created years ago. And as the market's changed, the IPAs have slowly become more and more popular. There was a time where people didn't even know what IPAs were. And actually, Hoptamistic was as far as I know, is pretty much the first IPA in the St. Louis market. So we were lucky enough to be kind of out the gates early on this one. It's changed a lot throughout the years. It was much more malt forward when we first started brewing this beer, and that's just because of the nature of the market as well. And then over the years, as more and more people have craved more hops character, we've started to shift it that direction. Really happy with the way we're at right now, and I think it's no reason why it's our #1 seller, because we've gotten it to a really good sweet spot. And so we're going to stay there with the exception of a couple of those changes. But the overall perception of this beer, I don't think is going to change dramatically just by changing the base hops, but I think it'll improve it. So yeah, we're really excited to start working with the Bravo. This is 6.5% and 65. We say 65 IBUs, but it's probably 75 or 80 really when it comes down to it. But it's still labeled that way on the label. So. I don't know. Haven't changed it because it cost me $90 to change the plates. So, got to save money somewhere. So, but yeah, that's Hoptamistic. It's for those of you who haven't tried it, we hope you enjoy it. And for those who've had it before and haven't had it in a while, we hope you revisit it and enjoy it. Yeah. That's Hoptamistic. Any questions there? None? Way in the back. Charleville. Yeah, Charleville is, that's my mom's maiden name. So when we started out as a winery, it was, it made more sense as a winery, a French name. So that's what they went with. And when we started making beer, we kind of went back and forth with, should we come up with a name or should we just go with that? But the way we started brewing beer, it was not really, we're going to start a brewery and kind of get out and distribute and take over the market. That's kind of not how we started making beer. We just started making beer because we wanted to. And so we just kept the name Charleville Vineyard and Microbrewery. We're still one of the few people that use microbrewery as a term. So, yeah, it's my middle name. It's just a family name. That's where it comes from. And I've corrected people's pronunciation on it for years. So, and I'll continue to. So, yeah. Anyone else here? All right, cool. Well, it looks like we're moving on to the next collaboration and our fifth beer of the evening, if my counting is correct. Yes, right on. Groovy. So I'm going to ask Jared to come up. This is Jared from Heavy Riff Brewing here in Dogtown.
Oh, a nice applause. Thank you. Like Tate said, my name is Jared Safel. I'm the founder and head brewer at Heavy Riff Brewing Company. We started in 2013, and we opened with, no brewery. And Tate came in as a salesman trying to sell some beer, and I was just like, hey, you guys got a tank available or any way I could come down and brew beer? And they were nice enough and offered the tank space to us. And it's been a really nice relationship since then. And unlike contract brewing, I got to go down there. I'd known Tony for years, the original brewmaster. I started brewing in 2008 at Mattingly Brewing Company. So any of you guys who love St. Louis sours and barrel-aged funky things, that started at Mattingly. That was 2008. We were just too far ahead of our time. But because I had enough brewing experience, I would go down there, and Tony's like, well, why don't you just run it, and I'll show you what you need to do, and you just do it. So it's almost an extension of just being our brewery, especially as they've moved into their 30-barrel new facility. It's been really nice because I could, go down there for the day. My phone doesn't ring. Nobody calls me. I just make beer. No reception at all. And it's been nice as well because both companies kind of run a skeleton crew. I'm the only brewer. And on days like yesterday, I wasn't feeling so good, and these guys covered for me. And they've had bottling days where they didn't have enough people to come down and help out, and I've been able to come down and help them. And so for a little while, we'd get drunk at beer festivals, big surprise. And we said, we should do a beer together. We should find something to make. And Tate had done a test batch of a black rye IPA. And I used to brew for under Dave Johnson at Kirkwood Station and Buffalo Brewing Company. And if any of you guys got to have those beers, Dave is a big fan of rye malt, as I'm a big fan of rye malt, and Tate as well. And so we took his recipe and kind of just, did some small things to it. I wanted to put Galaxy hops into it. So our friends over at O'Fallon were able to hook us up with some Galaxy hops, which are really nice and tropical. They sort of stick out amongst the big roast character that's in the beer. The roast character fades and it's continued to fade over time, which is what we want. We've been using Carafa 3 malt, which is a dehusked chocolate malt from Germany, along with some Two-Row, some Crystal 60, something else in there too, I think. I don't know. Yeah, Kevin's got the recipes here, and rye malt. So, yeah, it's a bigger beer on the bigger end of the spectrum, but reasonably well balanced. Actually, it drinks quite well in the glass. It actually holds a head reasonably well, and I'm kind of surprised because a lot of times at least in my glass it is, a lot of the rye beers don't, and I have no scientific reasoning as to why. Just a lot of the rye beers just do not hold a head at all. But it's been really fun to do a collaboration. Heavy Riff really likes doing collaborations with people. This is the third one we've done. We've done one with Excel, which is called Two Frenchmen. The second batch, and unfortunately the final batch of that comes out a week from yesterday. Rod Bergier, who is another French, my last name's Safel, so we have Charleville, Safel, Bergier, all these French names. He moved on to Schlafly, so this will be the last batch of that. And then we did one as well with a bunch of guys just from basically my brewing lineage, my Kung Fu brewing lineage. of all the guys who used to work for Dave Johnson or with me in different breweries. We did a beer that we did down at Charleville. Actually, was a big Bach beer called New Kids on the Bach, which was fun. It was a really good beer. And then we've got a few more in line, and I like to see that continuing to grow as a trend because I think collaborations they drive home the point that this is not breweries fighting for space at the table. It's everyone pitching in to make the community better, give all of our fans something new and interesting to drink, and it's fun for us brewers to get into the mindset and see how each other kind of clicks and how we like to make our beers. And like we used a lot of Tate's grain bill, but we used a lot of the hopping technique that I employ, which is I do a lot of my bittering additions. I kind of split them up in my IPAs. So if it's 40 IBUs, I'll do 20 as a bittering, and then the last is kind of hop blasted and then dry hopped. So it's really cool to do that kind of stuff. And we're going to continue to brew with Charleville as our brewery continues to grow. None of that's going to change at all. We get that question all the time. Oh, you guys going to still do beer down there? Why wouldn't I? For me, that's almost like a vacation day. I get to go down there and drink a couple beer with good people and brew, and my phone doesn't ring. So it's wonderful. And if you guys haven't come down there to check out Charleville, you really need to. It's beautiful to look over the hills and eat snacks and drink good beer.
Yes. Yeah, so we call this, that was the one thing I was going to say. If you guys aren't familiar with Heavy Riff, their beer names are all music references from various different genres of music. And so we were having a hard time coming up with a name for this beer because...
And/or it was already taken.
Yeah, most of the names that would have black in them, like, Fade to Black or Back in Black and stuff like that, those things were already taken. And so it's kind of like, well, even if this just was one-time draft only, let's come up with a name that maybe is not taken yet, because if it goes over well and we want to put it into bottles, which I think we will with this, we have to have a name that's not already taken, otherwise you get into trademark issues and all that crap. So I was sitting there with Rick, one of the owners, and we were just talking about some other stuff, and I glance over, and on their desk there's a picture of Johnny Cash, and I said, Man in Black. And we were like, bam, there it is. Yep. So the name of the beer is Man in Black. Yeah, so as Jerry was saying, like, this has been a really cool 2.5 years now that we've been working together, and I think what he said earlier was really kind of cool, and I think it's important for people to know that Jared comes down and brews his own beer on our equipment. We don't brew it for him unless there's like a situation where we just have to do something, one little aspect. But I mean, so I want people to know that, like, this is not us making beer that they're just buying and putting on tap. Same with Earthbound. They're coming down, they're brewing on our equipment. That's how we like it. It's, it allows them to be more true to style, true to what they're wanting to do. And with the exception of a couple hiccups on ingredient ordering on my part, for the most part, we get everything about right. So, But yeah, so this has been really great, and honestly, it keeps our system turning and burning, which is cool. So, does anyone have any questions about this beer, Heavy Riff, or
punch as if this was a more pale, a regular pale IPA? The roast character will definitely kind of bring it into a more balanced category. And sometimes when you, especially with the black IPAs, I like to call them Cascadian Dark Ales because the IPA thing is weird. Kevin has a big problem with these as well. You see like, 75, 80 IBUs, I'm a hophead, this is gonna be great, and you're like, man, this drink's kind of balanced. Are they lying? Like, we're really not lying. It's just such a more balanced beer, for sure.